Hello, everyone. My name is Celina, and I'm a part of the Let's Discuss A Course in Miracles webinar team here at the Foundation for Inner Peace. The mission of the foundation is to publish, distribute, and discuss A Course in Miracles. And we hold these Let's Discuss online web events as an expression of our vision of extending love through Course teachings. Today's session is Gratitude as a Spiritual Practice. This event is being broadcast live and will run for just about 90 minutes, give or take. Many of you submitted thoughtful questions in advance, and we'll weave several of those in today's conversation. So if you're joining us live, please feel free to submit additional questions at any time using the Q&A button on your screen, and we will take questions as they are relevant as we have time. And we're thankful for everyone who took the time to share. Before we begin, a note for our Spanish-speaking community. Today's conversation will be offered in English, and we are also providing live simultaneous Spanish translation. So to listen in Spanish, simply click the interpretation button in your Zoom controls and select the Spanish channel. And before we introduce our panelists, let's pause and center in prayer. In chapter 2 of A Course in Miracles, the Course reminds us that there is much we can do behalf of our healing and that of others if we think of situations in this way. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent Him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do because He who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal. Thank you. So today, as we turn toward the theme of gratitude, it's helpful to remember that how consistently really the Course returns to it. In A Course in Miracles, gratitude isn't a holiday theme or even a nice sentiment. It's really a way of seeing. And with Thanksgiving just a few days away here in the US, we're reminded that in the Course, gratitude also extends to the more difficult relationships and situations we encounter in the world. These are really the very classrooms that reveal what is still unhealed in us and offer us a chance to choose differently. So, lesson 195, workbook lesson 195 tells us, love is the way I walk in gratitude. And gratitude really goes hand in hand with an attitude of humility. It's a quiet thankfulness for everything, including our lessons. It is also the recognition that healing is not something we do alone. So, in today's conversation, we'll explore this deeper, more transformative sense of gratitude. Gratitude not just for something out there, but gratitude is a practice in our practice. And we'll look at how gratitude shifts perception, deepens inner peace, and it can be brought into the details of everyday life, how it can be brought to the details. So we are so fortunate today to be joined by mighty companions who will share their insights, reflections, and experiences with all of us. And I'm really delighted to introduce and be with my colleague, our Chief Development Officer, Laura Fenamore, who will really facilitate this discussion, and also our guests. They are A Course in Miracles teachers and authors, Hollie and Robert Holden. Hello, everyone, and welcome to you all.
Hi, Celina. Thank you for that great
Hey,
intro.
Laura. It's good to be with you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, yeah. So first, I want to express my deep gratitude to you, Celina, for your leadership in these webinars and for that beautiful introduction. I also want to express gratitude for Jim, our gem of a volunteer who's behind the scenes working on Zoom, and also Vero, who's translating this into Spanish. Now I want to say a thank you to the Holdens for being here for this discussion with the foundation. I have had the ongoing pleasure of, I just want to, the honor to attend one of their incredible workshops. I've got to watch them both on stages. I've gotten to listen to them teaching online, and their devotion and practice to A Course in Miracles is just absolutely beautiful. I've gotten the pleasure of breaking bread with them, and all I can say is that they practice what they preach, and their two children are also exemplary of that. So, Celina, thanks for bringing in lesson 195. And I already saw in the chat that somebody said that that's one of their favorite. I want to read a little bit from that lesson and then share a little bit about gratitude and then get to our guests, Robert and Hollie. So, lesson 195, love is the way I walk in gratitude. Gratitude is a lesson hard to learn for those who look upon the world amiss. Our gratitude will pave the way to Him and shorten our learning time by more than you could ever dream of. Gratitude goes hand in hand with love, and where one is, the other must be found. For gratitude is but an aspect of the love which is the source of all creation. For love can walk no road except the walk of gratitude, and thus we go who walk the way to God. A Course in Miracles teaches gratitude for what is eternally in God, unchanged by anything that seems to happen on the outside. In the Course, gratitude is not about comparison or contrast. It's not about transactions. It does not come because I have something. It comes because of all of God's children. We're all blessed together. We're all one. So when we forgive, we automatically feel grateful because we see innocence instead of guilt. Gratitude isn't an effort, it's an outcome of clearing perception. So I want to invite Robert and Hollie. You can choose who will go first to share anything that you would like about gratitude as it reflects with the Course, your life, your practice, and then we'll get to the questions. So, Robert, Hollie.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you, Laura. You want me to speak first?
Yeah.
I'm just having to decide over here who speaks first. Well, thank you so much for welcoming us. We asked you before we came online with everybody, how long you've been doing this for, and it's so wonderful to hear this is your 5th year, or maybe entering your 6th year or something, of having this regular space of presence for people to come and be in this field of awareness together. And we run our own community here in the UK, but anyone can join because it's online, which is the miracle of all of this. So we have a very international group of wonderful people. And we find that it's so powerful to talk about these things in community because we learn so much from what we're all getting up to and how we're working with the Course. It may, be the most obvious passage in the world, but I find it very sweet, Laura, that we came from our webinar for today wanting to share exactly that paragraph from lesson 195. So, we're just on the same page. And I just want to say that the thing I love the most about that paragraph is where we're told really that, gratitude and love can't be separated. It's all the same stream. And also that gratitude is what opens us up to be in true intimacy with God, to really feel God's love, to feel that God loves us just because of who we are or what we are the words that are, written down. But it feels to me like this is really the central teaching of the course is our identity, is knowing who we are. And if gratitude is this kind of practice that creates a crack in our shell, you know, when you're in your day, I find this, I'm in my day and I go into kind of transactional mode, like I've got to get some stuff done and here I am. And I find that if I slow down, my personal practice, the one I would like to share, is what I do is I slow myself down, and I do this intentionally by, for example, in our local supermarket, we have those automated tills, you know, where you pay on your own and you do the whole thing yourself and then you leave and you haven't spoken to anyone. And there's always about sort of 15 of those available. And so it's kind of tempting, right? Because you're in and out quicker and it takes less time. But one of my practices, for example, is whenever I go in there, I choose to stand in the longer line so that I can hang out with the person who is beeping the shopping through. I don't know how to else to say that. But you know, the person who does the beeps. And my words have gone. And you know, I love that because although it takes me longer, it slows me down and it brings me into what everything is really for, which is about, you know, how can I be the presence of love here, really? And then mostly what I'll do is just, you know, acknowledge the person who's supporting me in that moment, who's helping me in what looks like a sort of very mundane way that we don't make a big fuss about. But just being in acknowledgement of another human being and how's your day? And there's one woman I always know she finds the chair uncomfortable, for example. So I always ask her, have they changed your chair? You know, just like giving our attention, showing our gratitude for all the daily tasks that are required to make this world work. That's an example of where I really choose to live that way. And of course, I can't do it all the time. You know, I have to be realistic. Sometimes I am in a rush and I can't do that. But 90% of the time, that's how I go to the supermarket. And I was also thinking of an example of where a couple of years ago, I had to have my first brush with the medical system because I needed to have something removed just behind my ear. And it was a very tricky and delicate operation that I had to have. And as I say, it was my first time needing help from that realm. And I found myself feeling all of this enormous fear in my body. You know, fear of having to go under general anesthetic for it ended up being 3.5 hours or something. And fear of what was going to happen. And also, when I went to my pre-checkups and things, I just found myself feeling really scared. And so I thought, okay, so I'm here. And there was one day we were in the elevator, and I realized that my best chance of coming back into presence, like out of this kind of very fearful state that I had found myself in, was to look for something I was thankful for. You know, and I really do feel like the course is such a blessing for me because it's just this constant call to come back. It's just constant, constant in the most mundane of moments. And I noticed that there was a hospital porter there, and he was in the same elevator as us. And I know the structure of hospitals because my brother is a medic. And I know that the people who push the beds around and clean the bins and clean the floors, I know that they don't get acknowledged in the system because there's this hierarchy, right? So I look at this guy and I thought, okay, I'm really scared. I don't like being in this hospital, but I'm going to choose where I put my attention. And I said, excuse me, I just want to let you know that I really see what you do. And I'm really grateful. And I know this system, and I know it probably doesn't acknowledge you as much as you deserve. And I just want to say that it means a lot to me that you do what you do. And this place wouldn't run if you didn't. And we all got out of the elevator at the same stop. And this man, with tears streaming down his face, he said, I feel like I was in a desert and I had nothing to drink and I was right at the end of all of my resources, and you just offered me the drop of water that would revive and save me. And I was so surprised because I thought, hang on, like this can't be that big a deal just to be thanked for doing such important work. But it is, because in this world, as we know, when we move around, it's like most people are not in presence. Most people are not in gratitude. Most people haven't received that. Most people also haven't been parented in a way where they have been seen for who they really are. So, for me, the reason we call our community Everyday Miracles is because we really believe in the power of bringing the love that delivered the course and that reaches for us and welcomes us every time we come to our study or we open the book or even just put our hand on the book if that's all we've got in us that day. And to really bring that love into being, into form through our words. Yes, of course, through our webinars and through our teaching, and for people who have put their hand up and say, I'd like to know about this love, but also just with everybody we encounter, and the more I do that, the more I find that my relationship with myself softens and flourishes, and I feel adoring towards myself. And then that it's like the giving and receiving in the course. It's like there's this beautiful movement of, if I'm feeling that about myself and I can treat myself with that tenderness and feel that gratitude for all my inner work and how I show up, then that goes out in a kind of loop of deliciousness to other people. And then that fills me up again, because the joy of connecting and being in gratitude and feeling like, oh my goodness, there's this extraordinary person in front of me and I can see how bright their light is and I can appreciate them so profoundly, that for me, that's this loop of giving and receiving that the course is really teaching us about. So yeah, that's kind of where I want to begin. And it feels like a lovely time of year to do that because everyone starts getting a little bit caught up. I know our context is, so many of you are from the US and you're starting to think about, people I'm coaching at the moment are going, well, this person wants to come to the family reunion and this person doesn't. And then, so and so isn't invited. And I'm really stressed because I'm doing the food. And, we all get like this. And then we have Christmas afterwards. And I think it's a really perfect time, just when things ramp up, to have a space where we can reflect and decide how we want to be. Like, how do I want to show up? Who do I want to be? How do I want to give? What can I bring, rather than, you know, which bumps us out of that other state of, how's it going to feel? And am I going to get wounded by somebody? And is my mother-in-law going to do something weird? And all those things that we get caught up in, right? And so I'm really grateful for this opportunity just to talk in a very down-to-earth way about how we actually like land these teachings, in the middle of our lives, in the middle of our relationships, and how we approach this season of celebration, but also heightened feelings, let's say, which many people experience around this time of year, regardless of whether you even follow these holidays. It just is a time of heightened everything. If we can have these types of spaces that regulate us and just bring us back into line with the true self that is made of the frequency of gratitude. So there's nothing to do, there's no formal practice. It's just a case of, can I be mindful enough to remember to come back into my natural inheritance, my natural state, the ground of love in me? Can I just do that every day? And can I just really forgive myself when I don't? Which is of course our fastest way back anyway. So yeah, those are the reflections that come to me first. And I hand the floor over to you, Bobs, to see what you would like to add.
Thank you. Um, so yeah, Laura, I think that one of the reasons I'm so grateful to A Course in Miracles is because I really do see it as a training in vision.
Mm,
And it's really helped me to see everything with a new set of eyes. And I would include in that, it's helped me also to see gratitude in a new way.
mm,
And, that's why I've come to think of gratitude as being so much more than just a positive attitude. I see gratitude really as a spiritual path,
mm,
which is a big thing to say, but I actually believe it is a spiritual path. If we were to practice gratitude, it really would take us all the way back to the wholeness, to the oneness, to the divine, which is waiting for us in our journey without a distance. I also think that gratitude is a spiritual practice, and this has all come to me very much by just being with A Course in Miracles. There are two lovely phrases that the Course offers us. One is the hymn of gratitude, which I love. And for me, the hymn of gratitude is an invitation to live life differently. And then we also have the song of thankfulness, which is this whole new way of praying as well. So by being with the Course, I think what I've really come to realize is that gratitude itself is a miracle. And there is such a thing as the miracle of gratitude. And initially, when I practice gratitude, nothing much happens. Not initially, but if I stick with it and I stay with the practice, I begin to notice how gratitude changes the way I feel about the world, how it changes the way I feel about the people I'm with, how it changes the way how I feel about myself as well. And I was listening to you, I really realized that gratitude is like this conduit for love.
Mm.
mhm,
And in being a conduit for love, it actually brings out the best in each other.
Yeah.
We actually, when we approach each other with gratitude, I think the Course would say when we remember that every relationship is potentially a holy encounter, that somehow we are gifted to each other, then, we get to enjoy each other so much more in the good times. And we also get to stay in the conversation, be in the relationship in a different way during the difficult times. Because we know that deep down, there is a curriculum here. There are gifts here. If somebody is in your life, it's because they have a gift for you and you have a gift for them. That's what gratitude teaches us. That's the miracle. So I'll start there, Laura.
That was beautiful. Thank you for that, both of you. And Holly, you gave those beautiful examples of the grocery store and the hospital. And I'm just wondering, Robert, if you have an example that you can share right now before we get on to some of the questions.
Yeah, well, a really current one right now is that I'm just finishing a book that I've been writing for the last 2 years, and literally I think we'll be sending it off to the press tomorrow. And one of my favorite moments in putting a book together is writing the acknowledgements page
Mm,
because you know to the physical eye, it would appear that there is only really one author who's written the book. Often, a book gets written in solitude. I'm essentially on my own physically. But one of the reasons why I love to write is because it feels like a co-creation in which life is helping me every step of the way, in which there are synchronicities that just are miraculous, where you just a lyric of a song, a sign on a billboard, a book that gets given to you becomes a valuable hint and spur for the journey. And also, most of all, there are all of these people that, in one way or another, are actually helping you to write the book. And, these people are teachers and friends and mentors and fellow authors. And, you just get a chance to say thank you to all of these people because when I'm writing, I I don't feel alone. I do actually feel as if what's happening here is a joint effort, and it's part of the miracle of writing is that you start with nothing and you end up with something because of a relationship. And writing is, I think, often I think of it as an act of listening. And in the listening, something gets put down on paper and then miraculously it gets printed and out it goes in the world. So just putting together the acknowledgements page, Laura, is one of the best fun bits of putting a book together for sure.
That's beautiful. That's really great. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to move on to another question. How has practicing forgiveness in your life opened the door to a deeper, more constant sense of gratitude?
So many moons ago, I ran a project called the Happiness Project, which I started on the National Health Service here in the UK. And I created essentially an 8-week program to see if we could help people be happier in their lives. This was quite a departure from my training. My training in psychology was mostly the study of unhappiness and how to be slightly less unhappy. And now I was really working with a wellness model and looking to see how we might genuinely flourish in our lives by meeting the challenges of our life, not shying away from them, not turning away from them, but actually turning towards them and being able to work with them. And over those years, what became really clear was there were two meta attitudes, which were thoroughly researched as well by a lot of my colleagues in the field, that were really showed to make a big difference when it comes to living a truly happier life. And the two meta attitudes are forgiveness and gratitude. And I think it would be fair to say that for me, forgiveness is a gift. When I'm practicing forgiveness, I'm not practicing forgiveness to be spiritual. I'm not practicing forgiveness to be good. I'm not doing it because I should do it. I'm doing it because it really is the smart thing to do. And there are so many gifts that come when I practice forgiveness. And I would say, actually, as much as anything, it's when I'm courageous enough to practice forgiveness. And to practice forgiveness, that means I have to like really turn towards the situation that I'm finding so difficult. But when I do this, and here's the key for me, I think of forgiveness really as an angel. So when I'm practicing forgiveness, I actually think of forgiveness as an angel, and I ask the angel of forgiveness, help me, show me how to forgive in this situation. Now, when I ask forgiveness, the angel of forgiveness, to show me how to forgive, I feel like I'm actually thinking with the mind of God, and with the heart of God, and God's showing me how to forgive in this situation so that I can show up in a way where I remember what's real, and I remember that nothing real is threatened, and I'm able to meet my hurt, my pain, my wounds with compassion and love. And when I do that, what do I feel? Gratitude. So I would say in many ways this, forgiveness and gratitude, they just work together. They're like brother and sister, and they're more than just attitudes. They are a way of being, and they support each other, I think, in helping us to be even more that loving presence that I think we all want to be in life and aim to be in life. until life gets difficult and impossible, and we feel like we want to turn away from it again. So, yeah.
Mm, beautiful.
Mm.
Thanks, Robert. Holly?
Yeah, I mean, I just love this inquiry. I really genuinely bring myself freshly to each question that I get presented with. And I'm sitting here going like, what is that for me? And I'm going back to this moment recently where I was in a session with a woman that I just work with, work through all of my layers with in my life. And I had this huge experience of gratitude for absolutely everything that had led me to be the presence of compassion and understanding that I know I am for others and for myself these days. And and I'm realizing as I sit here that that gratitude wouldn't be flowing through me had I not had my compass set towards forgiveness
Mm,
in all of my relationships in my life, if that makes sense. So if I had just remained in that victim loop of I'm just going to spend, all of my years telling the story about how hard things have been and, my upbringing and different elements that have, been difficult or whatever, we've all got that in our past. But there was this genuine feeling of, in a way, the process of forgiveness dignifies everything that happens to us on our journey to becoming who we are because it actually gives everything um a place. Everything everything is everything is making us into the truest version of ourselves when we bring forgiveness into the equation. And so in that sense, I think, as I reflect on that, I'm realizing that that's the reason I can feel such gratitude for all of the things that I definitely will tell you I spent years wishing, weren't that way. So there's that huge change that can happen when we really do the work. We face it with honesty, just like Robert's saying, we're big believers in let's not go straight to the forgiveness. Like let's put the cards on the table and say, hey, let's be truthful about this, but let's also be truthful about this. Like both the human and the divine, bringing them together. So I love that question, and it feels like it's landing in a very lovely way in me that the gratitude is impossible to pull apart from the power that forgiveness has to help us um heal and come back, you know?
yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
absolutely. And I'm just going to tag on to that and just say that it has been my experience that when I was in the process of really grounding into forgiveness, looking
Mm.
at all the ways that I had been a victim, all the ways that I had felt victimized by my childhood, by my life. When I found A Course in Miracles, the Holy Spirit, Jesus, spoke to me directly and said, the goal is for you to be grateful for all of it. And that's going back to this is a deep spiritual practice. And it's like all of it. It's like, yes, all of it, to accept and be grateful for all of it. And so that was my path to saying, oh my goodness, I have to be grateful for my dad, for my mom, for all of it, all of the abuse, all of the pain, all of the addiction, all of it. And it's really easy to be grateful for puppies. And it's really not easy to be grateful
Yes.
for the part that has really been painful. And like, we know that there are people that are listening to this that may be suffering from a disease or maybe struggling with depression or really in a hard place. And just to acknowledge it's often hard to find gratitude when you're in that place. But I can tell you that I know from my experience, it's putting one foot in front of the other and really knowing that We created it all, and it's a gift. And there's a path to get to really believing that. But like, I want to say something naughty right here, but when I will, faith is not half-assed. It's either you believe it the same way that gratitude, it's you either believe it and practice it or not. And the Holy Spirit is constantly leading us on every page of the book into, you know, this is a gift. Love is the only thing that's real, and gratitude is love. I mean, to me, it's the same word. It's just a different word, but it's the same word. So, anything anyone wants to add to that right now?
Can I jump in though? I'm
Please,
really
please.
like to ask this because I'm watching the chat and some people are submitting statements or questions like simple but not easy. And someone just texted, Laura, how about when things get rough and painful? But if I could just ask this question, just to go a little bit deeper and to help some of our viewers or audience who are like, they really want to break it down a little bit more. We have Isabella wrote in, before the course came to my life, I used to preach a lot about gratitude and
Mm.
talk about the benefits of gratitude, but they were all about the form. With the course, I stopped talking and even practicing this type of gratitude. But I didn't find a replacement in the course for it yet. Do you have any tips on how to practice gratitude in a Course in Miracles way? So anything concrete you can give. Someone else in the chat asked about techniques. So techniques and tips, even if it's one thing to focus on, what would be helpful to share? And you've already
Well,
said some, but
yeah, I think that if we look at the big picture again for a moment here, for me, A Course in Miracles is a mystical text. It's a text that's been given to us that is in the lineage of a Christian mysticism. But at the same time, mysticism is always deeply ecumenical, and it is always universal. But it is a mystical text. And the mystical texts, and indeed mysticism itself, I think always starts with the awareness that life is a gift. We start there. Everything in our life fundamentally is some sort of a gift. And if you look at the beginning of all of the great traditions, they all start with wonder, awe, and praise. So that's there right from the beginning. And we are encouraged over and over again to recognize that miracles are a gift, if you like. Indeed, the word God's gift and gifts of God, those phrases, they appear over 100 times in A Course in Miracles. It's just there over and over again. And I'm just picking up this lovely piece here. A miracle contains the gift of grace, for it is given and received as one. So just starting with the bigger picture for a moment, there is this recognition that life is a gift fundamentally. And the mystics have this capacity to stay true to, I'm going to call it gift consciousness, a sense of gift consciousness. I think the Course might call it miracle mindedness, miracle readiness. And it's this sense of being really open and receptive to the blessing that is available in each and every situation, no matter what it looks like.
mm,
Mhm.
And so our work is simply to be able to say yes to these very, very holy words, which are, I am blessed. I am blessed. To be alive is a blessing. And we will struggle with that, each and every day in our own way. But the work is to hit the keynote of I am blessed. So one of the things I do as a practice, and I do this every day, is I make sure I spend at least 5 minutes connecting to the words I am blessed. And not just to the words, but to the feeling that we are all of us blessed. And we hear it in the course over and over again. I'm going to share some lines with you. I am blessed as a son of God. God is the love in which I am blessed. God blesses his son forever. And even more than that, and this is where it gets really exciting, my holiness blesses the world. So it's not only that I am blessed, it's that I am participating in a blessing that is existence itself. Now, I start there before the circumstances of my life kick in. But I start with I am blessed. I start there before I switch on my social media. I start with I am blessed, before I engage with my email. Everything begins with I am blessed. And it's what this does for me is it helps to build up what psychologists and philosophers call a basic trust. And the basic trust is that life loves you.
Mhm.
And because life loves you, you really have got everything in your spiritual backpack to handle every challenge that comes your way, no matter how difficult it is. And because life loves you, you don't have to do anything on your own ever. And because life loves you and because you are blessed, you can always call upon divine help in any situation. But the key, I think, is every single day before the circumstances of your life kick in, start with, I am blessed. And don't stop until you feel it. You feel it in your heart. It starts as an idea, then it becomes a feeling in the heart. And then eventually, I am blessed, actually, I think becomes an awareness that I am one with God and I don't have to do anything by myself today. So that for me is a very practical practice, which starts with I am blessed.
Beautiful, Robert. Thank
Mm,
you.
I
Yeah.
do have a second, but I didn't know if anybody else wanted an addendum to that question, but I don't know if anyone else wanted to go.
mm,
Holly, do you want to share anything about that?
I just want to share, yeah, I think I do. It feels to me like um I just want to name this word that helps me so much with the course because it allows me to go sort of direct. For me, that there's actually a lot of feminine in the course. There's a very profoundly feminine invitation in the course, which is to go direct into exactly what Robert's talking about, the feeling. And a word that really helps me is like, what is the frequency I'm tuned into? Because there are a lot of concepts and words and there's a lot of brilliance in that level, but there's this other level that for me, if I were to say like how do I really practice these things, it's that I've learned to distinguish which frequency I'm aligned with, so which kind of radio station I'm tuned into, and to be really forgiving about like I've got a really big range because I'm a human being, right? And we've all got this really big range. And it's like, that's really okay. But if I really, when I work with forgiveness, gratitude, like really seeing who I am, seeing who another is, often the story is so big. And, we're looking at world events right now, and I'm supporting a lot of people who feel very overwhelmed by that. And it's like, yes, and our point of power is in the still point. It's in the frequency of I am as God created me. Genuinely, that is where our power lies in any given situation. Knowing who I am, like coming back into, love is my true nature. That is my natural inheritance. And that is already a given. I don't need to manufacture the state of forgiveness. I don't need to do but I can find a place in myself where I'm bringing myself to that situation. And if I'm not, I can go and do a reset. I'm bringing myself to that situation by being building a connection with and being in that frequency. And I really find that when I do that and I don't try and do it right, if I'm really looking at where I'm genuinely coming from in myself, like that changes it for me. because I can also from that place release the outcome. And there was a great comment earlier, which of course we're always in this conversation about, well, I'm very forgiving, but when do I walk away or when do I set a boundary? All those things. And what I find is that if I'm in the frequency, then I'm inside my guidance system and I know. And people are on different levels of consciousness is the way I see it. And we, you know, being grateful for something doesn't condone something that's wrong and unloving. And I really feel we have to be careful to unpick these things because a lot of people are coming to this conversation with some very serious things that they're either in or have been in. And it's very important that we acknowledge that we're not talking about gratitude as a kind of path of positivity where we sort of just bury things. We're talking about a vertical line, a frequency that's available to us that we bring to the horizontal of our lives. So these are the horizontal things that are happening. This is what's going on. But there's something that happens, I think, when you study the course, this tipping point that happens where you go, I can bring the vertical while the horizontal is unfolding. I don't have to wait to get to this certain line so that I can feel God. God goes with me wherever I go. Forgiveness goes with me wherever I go. Love is available to me wherever I go, whatever I'm doing, whatever is happening around me. I can choose to realign with that frequency while the horizontal is throwing me around,
Yeah.
in my life. So just sharing like that, that's the kind of picture that helps me the most because I think we're meant to show up with the resources of that the course is giving us in the middle of it. I think
Mhm.
that's what changes our experience of things. That's what brings the miracle is like, whoa, I did it. I tested it out. I did it in the middle of the difficulty rather than waiting for the difficulty to pass. And it's a practice, but it's like, oh, what if I can not try and bypass it by going to gratitude, but bring gratitude in as my support? Bring that way of seeing in as of like, how can I go deeper here? How can I learn to be more loving? How can I learn more about who I am through this situation? How can I stand in that? How can I be a rooted tree in the hurricane? And that changes it for me because it's not about getting it right or like doing something. It's a state of being. That's like Holy Spirit in our bodies, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you all shared, so beautiful. I had tears come up to my eyes and could really feel it. And thank you so much for unpacking that for all of us. Um, but what comes to me too, and I know some of our audience has questions like this, like someone wrote in, so how do you be grateful for something of those rough and painful things, like those moments? So how you set yourself up in the day, beautiful. Those are beautiful techniques. But for those moments, when the ego comes in and shoots in, and there are these, the ego's loudest one will always speak first, and you have those rushes of disappointment, rage, that can come up in the mind. What is the best thing for people to do when it just seems to come out of nowhere and blindsides you?
Mhm.
Well, I think it it's all going to end up with gratitude, but that doesn't necessarily mean you rush to gratitude to begin with. Um, you hit, I think, the note right at the top of our time together, Celina, when you talked about the course encouraging us to see everything differently. And the course is a training in vision, and forgiveness helps us to see everything differently, but also gratitude helps us to see everything differently. The point for me is that I don't know how to forgive anything by myself. I ask for Holy Spirit's help.
Mhm.
Similarly, I don't always know how to be grateful for the situation I'm in, but I can ask the Holy Spirit to help me. Show me what the opportunity here is in this situation. Show me what the lesson is in this situation. Show me even what the gift is in this situation. Um, Show me what the invitation is in this lesson or in this situation I'm in. Um, in my 30s, I was forced to stop. I had a prolapse disc, two actually, and it was inconvenient to say the least. You know, I was living at a fast pace. Um, uh, everything was going great. Um, and at the same time, I think I was, looking back, I can see I was in a way living a bit too fast for myself. And I was at a particular point where, well, I was in the middle of my very busy life. I got a little, it felt like just a little pain in my lower back, which I ignored. I just kept going. And eventually that little pain became more like a sting, like a bee sting. And again, I just ignored it and I kept going. And then eventually, one day I was giving a lecture somewhere and I bent down to do up my shoelace or something and I couldn't stand back up again. And it became really clear that this was a difficult situation I was in. And it turned out I had a two prolapse disc. Um, it was awful. It was so painful to be forced to stop. I think in life you either get voluntary stops or involuntary stops. This was an involuntary stop for sure. And it was so inconvenient. I was so frustrated. I was so upset. I had to cancel so many things. And of course, what happened was that I had to basically create a space in my schedule, but a space also in my life. Now, at the time, having that space was scary and frustrating. I've since learned that whenever you get given a space in your life, space is a womb. Space is a time for a new birth. And, for 6 months, I had to walk with a walking stick.
Mm,
And, that walking stick became, it might sound odd, but it actually became a really good friend.
mm,
And not least because I was a member of a club now, a club of people who had walking sticks. And whenever I was out on the high street and I was walking along with my walking stick, if someone else was walking along with a walking stick too, because we had the time to stop, we'd stop and we'd chat to each other, just like you talking to, the woman in the grocery store or, to the guy in the hospital. And we had that chance to stop and be together and talk. And some of those conversations were really amazing. And I would have missed all of those conversations in my former life when I was so busy and I was on the run and I was doing so many things. I remember one day I was actually asked to by the physiotherapist to give the walking stick back. She said, "You're okay now. You can give back the walking stick." And I actually asked if I could keep it. I actually welled up. I teared up because I didn't want to give back the walking stick. The walking stick had properly become a friend to me in my life. And, you know, I can look back on that time now and say, you know, it really was a turning point for me. And I'm very grateful for that time. Now, I wouldn't have known that at that moment, but I learned about it afterwards. But the one thing I did do during that very, very dark and difficult time is I did ask Spirit, um, help me to help me to I did this journal which said evidence that my life is getting better. And I just looked for gifts each day that I was receiving, even though it felt like maybe my prognosis, by the way, was that I would never be able to run again. I'd not be able to walk properly again. This was not a good time. But by being willing to be open and receptive to the gift of the day, the opportunities, the lessons, the lessons that were there for me, I actually also think gratitude got me through my dark night of the soul as well. But it wasn't willpower. It wasn't me saying I'm going to be grateful. It was show me how to be grateful. And I would emphasize that for me is the key here. We can't do anything by ourselves. That's what we're being taught over and over again. So if you want to practice gratitude, you want to practice forgiveness, the great thing is to know that there is universal help at hand, and all we have to do is ask. And I can say, Dear God, you know I'm British. You know I've got these strange genes. where positive thinking is difficult for me. I haven't been blessed with positive thinking genes, and yet I would like to practice gratitude. You know, I can be a bit cynical from time to time. You know, I can be skeptical about life. You know, I didn't get off to a good start. Even so, I would like to know how to practice gratitude. Show me how. That is something we can all do. Yeah.
Oh, that was beautiful, Robert. So beautiful. And I just love that. That was a very, very great example of how we can all practice. And I think that because the course is a self-study course, a lot of people's egos get out of control with, I have to do this alone and there's no one out there. And,
Mm,
at the Foundation for Inner Peace, we do have these discussions every month. We have our social media channels, but right now you're watching these two brilliant teachers that they have teachings, they have a way, a path for somebody that's out there that might be listening live or later on that want and need support. Because I know as somebody that if it weren't for community, I would not be alive. If it weren't for, I can say oneness, if it wasn't for asking for help, and I didn't know how to ask the Holy Spirit for help. I always loved God, but I didn't know how to ask because I thought that I was too ashamed to ask. So like it took practice for me to get to that place where I could just recite that prayer that Robert did and ask for help.
mm.
And but there is help. There's always help for us out there. So,
I think what you're saying there, Laura, as well, another really good practice for us is to recognize our own blocks to gratitude.
mm,
Now, how do we make life difficult for ourselves?
mhm,
There is this extraordinary line in the course which says only you can deprive yourself of anything.
mm,
And so, on that note, and Nora, just following on from what you've shared, one of my biggest blocks to gratitude has been what I affectionately call my dysfunctional independence.
mm,
Um, you know, I I I'm actually grateful for how independent I was as a young man because my independence got me out of some really tricky situations. Yeah, it was because I could think for myself and act for myself that I was able to put my life together in a way when it was really rather difficult at times. Yeah, I had a father living homeless on the streets, suffering from alcoholism. I had a mother who was in a mental health home very often for a lot of our childhood. So, my independence was a good thing initially, but there is such a thing as too much of a good thing. And I'd become so independent that I didn't ask for help. I wasn't that receptive ever. I was really self-reliant. And so, in many ways, I didn't have much of a chance to practice gratitude because I wasn't very relational. I wasn't letting people in. And I was missing opportunities to be helped, to be loved, to be assisted and supported. And so, really, when I started to, ask how can I practice gratitude more, one of the messages I got from Spirit over and over again, and even to this day, is, well, you could let people in a bit more, Robert. That would be a good place to start. You don't have to do this all by yourself. Once upon a time, you thought you did, but you don't have to now. So I think just being honest with ourselves in a compassionate way and recognizing how we might make it difficult to practice gratitude as well, I think can be a really helpful practice as well.
beautiful.
Mm.
Now, Holly, somebody has asked, what if there's a really difficult person or situation, like right in front of you? What's a practical way that you practice gratitude with a really, let's say, mean person?
Like a mean one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mean one.
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me is that I believe my work is to attend to myself. And of course, that's a very Course in Miracles thing, but I really feel that if I'm being really honest, I think we have to be super practical about those moments. I had something recently where I was alone I was in public and a man was really, really horrible to me. And there's a couple of things that need to happen. One thing is around safety. It was like, okay, can I speak up? Can I speak truthfully here? Is it safe? So I'm super practical about this stuff. So I just do want to say that I think, you know, it's funny, we're so quick to jump to like, well, the ego speaks loudest, but just as Robert said, there are strategies that are also required in certain moments where I don't judge that at all in myself. I'm like, no, I feel like I want to know what my response is before I tend to myself and say what I need to say from that place. And so I want to start there, but I also feel like, as we were sharing earlier, and Celina, I loved your question about what happens when a big feeling comes up, because for me, that's the first thing that happens. If someone's horrible to me, I get this big feeling and it comes up from my tummy. And it's like we all know that feeling of like it's scary and all those things. So the way I see that, and I might not be so literal in the moment or so specific in the moment, but the way I generally see the way I meet myself is that I really do see as a core student, my work is to teach myself love and therefore to teach other people love. Like really. And then it's like, well, how? And in that moment, what I tend to do is I start with how can I meet this that's arising in me right now with love? Because the minute I bring love into the equation, I don't care whether I'm forgiving or not. Forgiveness will happen if love's in the equation. I don't need to be clever about it. I don't need to remember what the course says about forgiveness. I need to start where it works, which is with me. And I need to say, okay, so if my work is to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, to the awareness of gratitude's presence, to the awareness of the truth in me of who I really am, let me be thankful in this moment that my body's really clever and my system's really clever. And it says, this is the feeling that's coming up right now. It's the opposite of forgiving or loving or accepting or whatever, but it's the block, right? And if our work, according to the course, that introduction, if ever I get stuck, I go back to the introduction, right? The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, but it does aim at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And so for me, my contribution to any forgiveness that's going to happen is okay, what's the block? So you might be feeling, I don't know, you might be feeling fear, you might be feeling anger, you might be feeling hurt. Meet that with love. That's always my first go-to because what I find that if I can do that, it's a little bit like what I was saying before. If I can bring the vertical in to a very difficult horizontal moment, then what happens is the alchemy can do its thing, right? It's like I set off a chemical reaction in the right direction. And I remember that time after that guy was very scary and mean. I did find my voice and I did say what was needed and I did say it with that fierce kind of love because I didn't want him to do it to somebody else the way he treated me. And then afterwards, again, I stopped and I said, right, what is here to attend to? And I was very shaky and I was frightened. So I managed to get hold of you on the phone and I just let myself have a big cry. I attended to myself. I parented myself. I met myself the way I know God's love wants me to be met, which is with compassion.
Mhm.
And then the minute I did that, I began to feel like, gosh, I wonder what that guy, but it arose naturally. I wasn't being good. This natural inquiry, this curiosity arose in me. I wonder what he was feeling that he treated a woman on her own in the street that day in that manner. I wonder. And for me, curiosity is always the sign that there's some kind of forgiveness going on in my system. But I don't manage that. I'm just being really clear. I don't manage it. I don't manage the outcome. I don't have a story of success about whether I've forgiven someone or not. I set love in motion in my system in the place where I can do it, which is with myself. That's that's my answer. That's where I go. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. So,
Mm.
so beautiful. I love that. It's true that I don't want to be taking care of the other person. However, like there's a mean person that I work out with, and I have to come to a place of compassion for her by thinking I don't know anything about her. For all I know, she's depressed. She's got somebody sick at home. It helps me to imagine what she's going through in order for me to come to a place of compassion rather than just like, who is this? And that is my practice. Um, Robert, your I am blessed is mine. I am love in action. Just go for it when you go outside this
Mm.
door. So,
Mhm.
and calm and kind, be calm and kind, be calm and kind. Thank you to
Mhm.
Barb Curl who gave me that years ago. And yeah. So, Celina, did you want to add something?
Yeah. Well, I was just sitting with what everyone was sharing because all of it is so very important. I know it resonates with people. It speaks to people, and even on different levels. Someone earlier, while Holly was talking, which I loved what you shared, Holly, is so important because you know the importance of doing the inner work, but also staying safe. You're very practical about it. And I think that's a really important message to share. Someone said in the chat, how to set boundaries with people who are toxic to my peace of mind and still be the presence of love. And this isn't exactly what this webinar is about, but we, of course, promote staying safe, being good to ourselves, creating space as needed. But the work in this practice is, it's really a work of personal responsibility and looking within, like you said, at the blocks, what comes up, those big feelings. Because as the Course teaches us, minds are joined. And as we look upon our brothers, it's really a reflection of also what is within us. So to pay attention to those feelings coming up, those are beautiful lessons, even though uncomfortable at first. They certainly can
Mhm.
be. They take me a moment, like, okay, what just happened? What did I say? There's sometimes the words want to rush to my mind, and I recognize now in my practice that's the ego wanting to assert itself when it does that. But it also, with this practice, it doesn't do it quite like it maybe did 20 years ago, right? But to be responsible and to feel those feelings and to look at it with the Holy Spirit, asking for help, not by ourselves. So I just pulling out some things that have already been
Mhm.
said, but I think is really, really important because even at the beginning, we say gratitude, it's done with an attitude of humility. It's an understanding that we're not alone, that we do this with help, with the lessons in us within in the world, our experience of working with our brothers, as the Course says, but also understanding at the highest level, we're really truly safely at home with God. And we have gratitude for God for knowing that, all of this is an experience that we don't deny, but it's helping us heal when we use it. So
Mm.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I wonder if I could, it just comes to mind a whole other layer of gratitude for me that I've found to be like a spiritual practice and a spiritual path. And it's to do with the relationship to grace.
Mm.
Gratitude and grace in Latin, they have the same root. And we're all very painfully aware that many of us, we experienced the fall from grace.
Mhm.
That's where it all begins, the fall from grace. Except it doesn't begin with the fall. It actually begins with grace, and then there's a fall. And I think what gratitude can do for us, and it's certainly done for me, is it connects me very much to grace. And for me, the Course teaches us that spirit is in a state of grace forever, which is a remarkable thing to feel for a moment. My spirit is in a state of grace forever. But the most important thing I've learned about grace is that grace is God's total love, and grace is unearned love.
Mm.
And I just want to like take that in for a moment with all of us, that grace is unearned love. Grace is given totally, it's God's total love, and it's not earned, it isn't deserved, it's given, and it's given completely freely. and this takes us, I think, back to gift consciousness and to this awareness that life has been given to us as a gift. And when I'm practicing gratitude, I'm really wanting to reconnect with that everyday grace, that sense of unearned love, and to the sense that the gifts of God, the gifts of life, are being given to all of us simultaneously, and actually they're all unearned. Now, that's something that through gratitude, I'm working with still because I was, for example, I was raised in a strong work ethic family. A work ethic family where I was taught that you can have what you want if you earn it, if you deserve it, enough blood, sweat, and tears, and you can have the gifts. Yeah. But I'm, and again, there's merit in that. There is merit in flexing a muscle early on in your life. But like Carl Jung said, what was true in the morning of our life isn't necessarily true in the afternoon of our life.
Mm.
We mature, we become, we cultivate a healthy, well-functioning ego in the early part of our life, but at some point we're asked to put that ego on the altar and to become more porous, more spacious, more transparent for more of a soulfulness experience in our life, in the afternoon of our life. And for me, part of being in the afternoon of my life is to be aware of the unearned gifts of the divine, that which is freely given. So another exercise, just for fun, that I love to practice is thinking of, for example, everything that money can't buy. Thinking of all of the gifts in your life that money can't buy. Especially in a world where whether you're in whatever economy you're in, there's so much focus on money these days and if we have enough or not. But for me, the course is a teaching in abundance. It is a teaching from scarcity to abundance and moving past the scarcity principle. And one thing we can do is by tuning into grace and to the unearned gifts of God that are so freely given to us, every now and then just take a moment and see if you can recognize some of the gifts that come your way today that money can't buy. Yeah. And I'll say, initially when I do a practice like that, I'm often have a blank. I'm not sure what the gifts are that money can't buy. But if I stay with it, and once again, if I ask Spirit to show me how grace is showing up in my day to day, I find those acts of kindness become evident. An opportunity for me to be kind to somebody or somebody being kind to me. An opportunity to look up at the sun, to participate in a moment with nature, for example, whatever it is. But it's getting a feeling for that the gifts of the divine are not earned or deserved. They are accepted, they are received. And the more we practice gratitude for them, the less we feel like we have to earn it all. And we can actually just learn to receive it. So that's another example for me where gratitude can become a spiritual path, tuning into all the things that money can't buy, so that actually we have a healthy respect for what money can do in our life, but also to remember that actually the most valuable things in life money can't buy. And when we remember that and we remember it's all unearned and freely given, then I think what it does for me is it helps me to relax and be more receptive and open to being blessed and knowing I can be a blessing as well for the world. So it's just another one I wanted to put in there as a spiritual practice and working with gratitude as a spiritual path.
Mm, so beautiful. So beautiful, Robert. Thank you for that. And I just want to say that, going full circle to the beginning where I acknowledged you all, because I can't thank you enough, all of you, for what you give and just this webinar and how it will be seen and shown and help a lot of people. So, I mean, I just think of service. It's just the way that you serve is such a gift. And speaking of service, I want to say that I want to just do a shout out. As I said in the beginning, I have had the gift of being at the Holden's conference, their retreat. It was incredible, incredible. And I saw that in the chat, somebody was sharing that they went on a cruise with you. I've seen you live on stage, and you're incredible teachers. And I just want to acknowledge that. And also say that the Holdens are Brits coming to America. So it's long overdue, but you're actually going to be doing something in America in April. So maybe you want to say something about that.
Yeah, we're excited. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big deal. We've got lots of support and help to do it because for us to come over is a big, logistical thing. But we really feel strongly that so many people in our community and people we love, are living in the US and living through what's going on in the US, and everyone's got such big feelings about it, and there's so much division. And when we were invited, we said, well, sure, we would love to come. So we're going to be there in April. Maybe we could, I don't know, send the details on a link because we've got a lovely link where everything's laid out. So if you feel called to come and be with us, we'll be in New York, and I think the dates are the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th of April in Manhattan. And we're going to be in the Riverside Church. And yeah, you've seen who we are. If this speaks to you and you can come, we would love to meet you. We love our great passion is just making it practical. Like, how do we actually bring the love from this teaching into our lives? You can hear from what I speak about that my big passion is how do we meet ourselves with love so that we have any chance at all of meeting anyone else with love? I really feel that's where our work is at the beginning, and then everything flows naturally from there. So a lot of what we do in our workshops is just that undoing process and meeting everything with love and meeting each other. It's very joyful. So we would love the details to go out just so that if anybody
Also,
feels called, you come and join us. It's so
yeah, and
lovely.
also as part of the retreat, we're going to be actually on the campus of Columbia University, where, of course, the whole of A Course in Miracles began. So this is a great act of imagination, and with the
Mm,
help of our dear friend Gina as well, I want to say,
mm,
we'll be really going back to the beginning and to the really trying to embrace the mystical roots of A Course in Miracles
yeah.
and that mystical invitation. And we'll be showing the two films as well. And I think it'll just feel, to us, it will feel like a paying homage, really, a gratitude to Helen, to Bill, to Judith, to Ken, to everybody in the early days who were
Mm,
so brave. I mean, really brave, to follow that calling and and to give us the gift of A Course in Miracles. I mean, honestly, I mean,
mhm,
I know it's our desert island book, and I know I mean, I can't think of a book I'm more grateful for than A Course in Miracles. I mean,
mm.
this is it. So in a way, it's going to be a great opportunity to come back to a city that we love and teach there and do it all from where it
Yeah.
began.
Yeah, and also that, the movie night on the Thursday is included in the workshop, but it also is a standalone. So if you just wanted to
Yeah,
come and watch the films, we're doing it as a fundraiser for the Foundation for Inner Peace, and just to raise awareness of, your work, Laura, and what you're up to and what you're holding for the community. So just to say that, if you can only make it to come and see the films and come and have some lovely snacks and meet us, we'd also love you to do that too.
yeah.
So we can send all those details out. Thank you, Laura.
And if I
Of,
may,
oh,
yeah,
you go, Celina.
yeah, and if I may ask, this information, we put your biographies in the chat earlier. Is this information on your websites? So people, when they're hearing this, they know to go to your website that you're coming
Yeah,
to.
it'll be and also at everydaymiracles.love.
Oh
Yeah.
yes, that's well that I guess that is our website, isn't it? Our
Yeah,
Course in Miracles
yeah,
website.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah. So you can look there and
right.
yeah, and definitely robertholden.com has all the news as well. So
Is it
that's
.com, not
yeah.
.org? Okay, I'm not very good at this stuff. Okay, I just wrote a couple of.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
find it all. Just search. You just do a search in Google and it'll all come.
Thank you. And one other quick question that somebody Q&A'd in, and I thought I might as well ask, talking
Yeah.
about your work. Well, she writes, I saw that Holly has a book, A Never Changing Love, but I can't find it on the internet. How do you find it?
Well, it's so big when I put it into a manuscript that I was told that I couldn't publish it because it's too many words. So right now it exists inside Everyday Miracles. It's all
Okay.
published. Like you can just access the whole thing. And I'm working on it and I don't know how to do it. So if anybody has any ideas, I'd love that. But yeah, it exists online,
Because
but
it's a day book.
yeah,
Rolls has written a day book.
365
Yeah.
reflections. And yeah, when you put it together, it's too much. So you can come along to Everyday Miracles and
It's
look into it.
365 reflections on each of the lessons of A Course in
Oh
Miracles.
yeah,
So it just became this huge, huge thing. But I think you should be grateful for the question because I think it's a prompt.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
working on it.
Certainly help
Yay.
the
Yeah.
viewers and answer
Come
some
on.
for them.
Mhm.
Somebody
Yeah.
can reach out to you then on your site.
Yeah.
Yeah, we put the site, and then there's another question about Robert's release date.
Oh, for this new
Book.
book. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, this is a book on the Enneagram.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
yeah, so this is called Becoming Yourself, a journey of self-discovery with the wisdom of the Enneagram. And it's another, profound spiritual teaching, which I think in the same way the course works, it's mystical in nature. We actually did a 3-day event here, didn't we, on A Course in Miracles and the Enneagram a couple of years ago, where we basically looked
Oh
at the
goodness.
all of the lessons of the course and put them onto the 9 points of the Enneagram. For those of you who are familiar, you work
It
with the
was quite
nine
cool.
points of the Enneagram before you work with the 9 types of the Enneagram. The
Mm.
9 points represent facets of divine consciousness. So we did that. Yeah, but the new book is out in, let's think it's out in beginning of
February.
March. One thing I would like to share is my book Holy Shift, which is Holy Shift is
So good, that one.
yeah. Now Holy Shift is essentially the day book for A Course in Miracles. One of the things I did with Holy Shift was I because so much of the course is written in iambic pentameter, what I did was I took it's 365 days with A Course in Miracles, and I took an excerpt for every day of the year, either from the workbook or a theme that belongs to the workbook lesson, and I would take it from the text. Now, I didn't change a single word that I laid out on that page. All I did was I turned a paragraph into a poem. So I just took block paragraph and I laid it out on the page in a way that you can read it more like a poem. Now, Holy Shift is so it's purely A Course in Miracles, but I know for a lot of people it's a wonderful companion because sometimes it just feels like the book's a bit too big. And so when you've got Holy Shift and you can just go to the day page and pick up on the theme that's going to be presented in the lesson today, that's a really nice companion. And I love that Holy Shift is out in the world. It's
Yeah,
I know it's a good friend to people.
yeah, it is.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. And I think somebody had a question about the documentaries that you were talking about. And just so everybody knows, it's the documentaries, the Bridget Winters documentaries. The foundation has a
Mhm.
story of A Course in Miracles. Is it The Forgotten Song?
Yep. And the song remembered.
the song
Yeah.
remembered. Mhm.
Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
So thank you so much for
Exactly.
that. And so we're going to bring it to a close. We appreciate you all so much. But before we go, and each just take just a moment, even if it's one word or one sentence, something to leave our audience with about gratitude through A Course in Miracles. Go ahead.
Mm.
I think I'd like just to share that also to say that in the song of prayer, we're invited to pray in an entirely different way. And the Course says true prayer must avoid the pitfall of asking to entreat. Ask rather to receive what is already given, to accept what is already there. And I think that's a lovely invitation just to pause for a moment and to remember that we are living in an abundant universe, and that love, support, help, inspiration, grace are always available. And all we need to do is ask for help in the knowledge that in asking for help, it will be given. Sometimes the help comes to us in delightful and surprising ways. So we have to be open and receptive. It might not always come in the preferred way that we want it to, but that's part of the path, part of expanding our aperture, part of stepping into a larger life that gratitude invites us to do.
Mhm. And I just want to bring us back to where Laura began. I want to just pick out a couple of sections of lesson 195, that final paragraph that just says it, the whole thing. I just want to say this one. God gives thanks to you, his child, for being what you are, his own completion and the source of love along with him. Your gratitude to him is one with his to you. So I just encourage you to remember this is like massively a two-way street. It's a love-in and it's really available to all of us. And just I want to finish by thanking you guys for facilitating so beautifully, including how incredible that you do the live translation. And thank you for
Yeah,
being with us. And
thank you, Vero.
I know there's so many questions and we'd love to answer them, but please go to our website and we have an amazing team who will answer your questions if you email us. And we've loved being with you all, so thank you.
And we're up for doing a part two.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks.
we might need one.
Exactly, because there
We're
were lots
overflowing.
of questions that didn't get
Yeah.
answered, but they've all gotten answered. It was absolutely beautiful and
Ah,
perfect. And thank you so very, very, very much. And I'm
mhm,
just going to walk away with unearned grace and love that
mm,
really just resonated throughout my heart. So
mm.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you all. So, as we bring this discussion to a close, we want to extend our deep gratitude to our participants, our guests, and our audience, our entire webinar support team. And before we say goodbye, we just have a couple of important announcements to share. Definitely stay connected with us at the Foundation for Inner Peace. And we, of course, invite you to our online website at acim.org to explore digital resources. We have webinar events, a lot of history. So, a lot of information there that you can check out online. You can always email us to at info@acim.org or discuss at acim.org. A little bit about supporting the foundation. Course in Miracles has been made freely available for decades thanks to the generosity of our community. In fact, we just had a release with a partnership with the Dovo to make the workbook lessons available for prisoners. And that's workbook lessons available on a tablet for prisoners. So, just so you know, if you feel inspired to support our work, there's a lot that goes behind the scenes, and we sincerely appreciate any donations that help us continue sharing this path and the course's message of forgiveness. So, with love, with gratitude, thank you all for being here, and we look forward to having you again soon. Okay. Until then, and happy holidays.